Welcome to the podcast series Talking Success, connecting the global fintech community. I'm Stacey Jafta, and today I'll be chatting with Julian Sawyer, CEO of Bitstamp. Bitstamp is the world's longest-running cryptocurrency exchange, continuously supporting the Bitcoin economy since 2011. Julian, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Stacey.
How's your day been?
It's been good. It's early in the UK, but it's sunny out there for once. So it's.
Are you an early riser?
Yeah, I am actually. Yes, I think it's the joy of working in a global company that I've got colleagues awake 24/7. So there's always an email or a Slack ready to be responded to.
What's the time? We want to know what's your ideal time to wake up. What's your average time? The listeners want to know.
I tend to get up something like 6 something. Okay. Best time would be 8:30 until on a weekend, but that doesn't happen that often these days.
Do you have any morning rituals? This is something I'm personally interested in, knowing how different leaders in the space spend their mornings. Do you have anything like that, or you just go with the flow kind of guy?
I have a very bad habit, which is I look at my phone straight away, and then you see the emails and Slacks, and then your head starts processing. I always have a thing that I want to do, which is to get up and go for a cycle or a row or something. Yeah. But at that time in the morning, it's just nicer to stay in bed for another 20 minutes or so. So I should do better on that. I really should.
Awesome. Julian, let's jump in. I'm curious to learn a little bit about your career to date, going back to where you feel makes the most sense, but the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I guess I put my career into sort of three chunks. So sort of 20 years as a management consultant, Accenture, EY, started my own consultancy and ran that for about 12 years before selling that. And then I kind of got a bored of doing PowerPoints and everything else and wanted to have a real job, as I used to call it. And I had the opportunity to become a co-founder of Starling Bank, which is one of the challenger banks in the UK. And I was there as COO.
What an opportunity.
It's an amazing opportunity. So right from, the first 7 or 8 people thinking about what does this look like, fundraising, getting your banking license, getting your first customer, making the first card payment, all of those things were just amazing learning experience for me and the team. So I was chief operating officer there 4.5 years, and then I got the call to join crypto, and it was a kind of an interesting one because the initial reaction was no, thank you, and actually what we then unpacked was what is happening in the world of crypto is the merging of that industry with financial services. And I think the more and more you see, and certainly what's happened in the last couple of years, is that complete merging effectively of these two industries. And so I talk about Bitstamp as being a financial services business that does crypto. And I think that is super important in terms of the language and what that means in terms of that. So my career has been in those three parts. And I think I guess as you move on, you sort of underestimate what you have learned in the past side. But in terms of the consultancy gives you a huge network because you meet a lot of clients, a lot of people, but also see an awful lot of different organizations. And then being so ingrained in building a bank means you absolutely understand the regulatory framework, the payments frameworks, etc., which has all been really useful while I've been at Bitstamp.
When you got that call, what was your knowledge on the crypto space?
It was pretty low. I think I'd bought a bit of Bitcoin in the past, but nothing that material.
Did that scare you?
But it did. But I think it's kind of where we were in 2015 when we started Starling Bank, which was everybody went, you're going to do what? You're going to start a bank? That doesn't happen. It's a technology bank. It's a product that everybody has got. So a current account or checking account, we already have one of those. So, you end up in this really interesting space where once you take a step back from the industry and go, so what is happening? What's happening at the macro level here? And then you just go, that's really, really interesting. And I think when you look at Bitstamp, so just a quick couple of minutes on that. So we're the oldest exchange in the world. We're celebrating our 10th birthday next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, it doesn't sound a huge lot, but in crypto, that's a lifetime. It is. And then you look at the team there. You look at what our technology is. We look at our platform resilience and security. We look at our regulatory frameworks in Luxembourg, New York, etc. And you just go, so all the very, very hard building blocks, all the very hard things that takes a lot of time has now been done. They've been done by my colleagues, and we've done it really, really well. So what we're now doing is looking at how we, accelerate and pivot on that foundation, and that becomes a really interesting, exciting journey as the next generation of leadership comes into Bitstamp. The founder, has been there for 10 years. He stepped down once the private equity deal was completed, and it's now right. What's that next generation? I think this is interesting when we look at a slightly wider side of fintech rather than just pure Bitstamp. Is you obviously have a lot of founders who are incredibly inspirational and passionate about what they do, but at some point, they need to go and do something else, and probably sleep and rest. And I think what is interesting is you're starting to see a few of these now, the older fintechs now going, okay, so who's the next generation that is coming up? And, certainly in our case, that doesn't mean a younger generation. Our founder is 20 years younger than me. But, it is about having that experience, that different level of experience and drive to take the business into its next chapter.
What roles do you believe require that industry knowledge, and which positions have skills that are more easily transferable?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think the way I've answered this in the past is kind of when you look at what fintech means and what it is. So fintech is, a bunch of financial, and a bunch of tech, technology and product. And so what you need to have is enough control, enough risk, compliance, regulatory understanding in the fin side. And then you need to have that absolute magic and that spark from the product guys and the engineering guys to do things fundamentally different for our customers. And so for me, it's about getting people with that right culture, that right attitude to both of those things, and it's not easy, because you can find people who would come out of traditional banking who would be great at the fin, but they don't have the energy, they don't have the excitement, they don't have that focus on the customer experience that you need. And likewise, you can have people that perhaps have come out of the crypto industry or are in the crypto industry, and they are incredibly smart, bright people, but they're ingrained within that ecosystem. And what we're wanting is the magic where you've got people who can see both sides, can understand that we need to put those controls in place, do the right thing for the consumer, do the right things with the regulators, but also create that magic of the products. And that becomes, really, really important for us.
Are there any positions in the crypto space you feel have a tiny talent pool and makes filling extremely difficult?
I think software engineers anywhere, and great software anywhere is gold dust. I think people who can apply on the product side. So, going back to what I've just said, I think in terms of people who can understand the customer, understand customer experience, understand what that means, and then being able to put that into a product, into a customer experience that makes sense. And I think if you look at where we are in the crypto industry, we are moving from those innovators and early adopters into the mass market. So we're now having people that have never talked about crypto, your friends, who will go, oh, I just bought some, or I'm one thing, or I keep reading about this, I must get into this, etc. So we're seeing a whole different group or cohort of people coming into our industry, and therefore they, by definition, are less technical. They are less engaged in the technicalities of that, or the passion about the product, and are really sitting there going, this is an interesting trading product, or this is an interesting investment, or this helps me with my payments, or whatever. And so therefore what we've got to do is put this into the world of their language. So we should stop talking about mining and hash rates and all these other things. We should be talking in English and making it
would be
simple.
very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, a really simple example is, if once you've bought your crypto, then you put it in a custodian. Okay, well, that word doesn't kind of resonate with the average person on the street. If you said it was a vault, okay, I know what a vault is because banks have vaults. That's where I put the gold, isn't it? And that's where my money is stored. And my salary goes into a vault, even perhaps it doesn't or not. But even using complex words like custodian is like, that doesn't resonate so well. So I think we've got to think about what this is and how we educate and inform.
Definitely. Regulation is something that comes up often in the cryptocurrency world. Is it a barrier to progress for the sector, or should companies be towing the line?
I think it's neither, actually. I think it is a fundamental force for good. Regulation is there to protect consumers, to protect customers, to protect institutions. It is also enabling the industry or industries to play on a level playing field. And I think that is where the conversation that we're having in the crypto industry and with the regulators is so important. So it's not about towing the line in terms of doing the absolute minimum. It is about embracing what the spirit is as well as what the rules are, creating a level playing field, and then enabling customers to operate on that level. And, just to go back to the world of banking, because I think everybody, clearly understands that, but, all banks within a domestic market all operate under the same rules. Okay. Yeah. The regulator is the one to enforce that. And if it isn't going in the right direction or a company is not playing by the rules, then there's a whole range of sanctions that can be put on that bank. Why don't we have that on in the world of crypto? And I think part of the challenge, and we're seeing this in the news right now, is this is a 24/7 product. It's a global product. So how does a regional, local, country-based regulator make it work? Okay. And that becomes more of a challenge when the regulator does not actually have the remit to close down a business or to stop a business trading because they're not trading within their country. So I think that there's an evolution to come. Our view is, I think we were the first exchange in Europe to be regulated under the CSSF in Luxembourg. We spend an awful lot of time and money in ensuring that we are compliant, ensuring that we've got the right controls in place, we're doing the right thing for the consumers. And what we want to make sure is that we have that level playing field so that everybody engages on the same playing field. And then it becomes focusing much more on the customer experience, on what we're trying to achieve.
What are the risks associated with investing in digital currencies and using centralized exchanges?
I think if you break that down into two parts, so clearly, I think if you look at what are the risks of investing in cryptocurrencies, I think they've probably been fairly well documented. I think what you've got to do is open to the next level to say, actually, what do we mean by that? And clearly, you have some assets, for instance, a Bitcoin, which is a volatile stock, which is why people trade it, because it does make it does move. It is volatile, so therefore people can buy and sell and make money. It is also good as a longer term investment, as the last 10 years has seen. But you've also got things like stable coins, which is pegged to the US dollar or the euro or some other currency, which is therefore by definition stable, which means that is very good for things like payments. Yeah. So I think one of the risks that we've got, I think, is that cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is cryptocurrencies, and I think we've got a role to play to try and help educate and inform that is not the case. There are other cryptocurrencies that are fundamentally different in how they're constructed and are there for different use cases, and that becomes, I think, really interesting in terms of what they're used for and their associated risks. In terms of the risks of an exchange, I think you almost got a sort of a bit of a tree diagram here, which is really hard to explain on a podcast, I know. But you first of all got, are you regulated or not? And if you're not regulated, then clearly your standards in compliance are, subpar. Okay. So do you want to invest your money in an organization that is not playing by the rules and your money is not as protected, or the right oversight is not in there? So that's the first question. But let's assume you go down a regulated exchange position. Yeah. Then I think you've got a whole range of different things, which is, okay, fine, you're regulated, but where? Okay. So we chose Luxembourg as a major financial hub in Europe, but also a very traditional financial services hub. There are clearly a number of regions in Europe which have now emerged as being very exciting from a fintech perspective. We went to one of the more, or perhaps the oldest, or one of the oldest in Europe. And we're also in New York, which is also seen as the most strict regime within the United States. So where you are regulated, I think is important. Then I think you go into the more of the subtleties, and I'll just drill down on two or three. Can you actually speak to the exchange? Do they have agents? Do they have customer service? Are they responsive when you have got a problem? And you may be locked out of your account. You might have forgotten your password. You may be asking a question on fees or assets or whatever. Can you talk to them? That's really important, and customer service is high. System reliability, both from an information security perspective, so hacks, but also uptime. And we've seen in the bull run earlier this year, what we've seen is a number of exchanges at peak volume stop trading, which means I'm not getting the best price. I'm either not able to buy and participate in the market that I want to be in, or that I can't sell and exit the market at the price that I want to be in. That becomes absolutely critical in the words of trust that you have there. And then it's about the listing of assets. And I think this becomes kind of interesting. Our approach is that we are not going to list every asset in the world. We are wanting to do those that are safe, secure, have got some security behind them in terms of how they're constructed, the technology, the people who are operating it, etc. And that becomes really important. And again, I think it's about quality versus quantity. So for me, what we're very, very bothered about at Bitstamp is, having fantastic customer experience, talking to customers when they want to talk to us, having the best uptime in the last 6 months of any major exchange, and then having the right set of assets. And our assets are absolutely growing. But what we're not going to do is chase the latest fad that is out there.
What makes Bitstamp so secure and reliable?
I think it's a security first approach, and I think that goes in two parts. One is ensuring that from a regulator perspective that we can show that we are safe and secure, and having, external auditors coming in, internal auditors working with us, etc. But then having a security first mindset from our software engineers and product leads. So really thinking about, how do we do this? How do we ensure that we have got security and resilience and redundancy at the top of the agenda, not as an afterthought? And when you're building complex platforms like a trading exchange, that has to be built from day one. It can't be something that you add in later. And I think that is where it is super important to understand the culture. The downside of that is there is a cost. The downside of that also is sometimes the products take slightly longer to get out because we want to do it right. But when there is incredibly high volumes, you need a system that will be able to cope with that. You need a system uptime that is phenomenal in terms of always being available 24/7. And you can't do that on the fly. You can't do that as an afterthought. You've got to do that at the one. So it is that shift in thinking that, perhaps less mature organizations in the fintech space, in the crypto space, will go, I just want to get our product out to market. And that typically probably is the right answer. until you get customers. And then as soon as you've got a customer, you've got to be thinking and changing that mindset. And we've done that from day one.
You mentioned quality over quantity. Why would you want to keep your trading endeavors on Bitstamp when there are more assets on other exchanges?
Well, I think if you look at the stats, I think we've got sort of 30 odd assets. We've got 89 pairs of trading pairs, and we are adding, 3 or 4 new assets a month. So it's not that we are backwards in coming forwards. But when you look at what customers are actually doing, there's a very, very long tail of where there is a lot of noise, a lot of volatile price movements because there isn't enough liquidity in the market. There's not enough demand out there. And we don't think it is right for us to list something and then get a customer who may be not as informed, not being able to see what everybody else is doing, and then going into a stock which hasn't got that liquidity or doesn't have the resilience around it. And I think, not really wanting to sit here and talk about Elon Musk, but, he has done some things in terms of changing some pricing, which, is kind of nice headlines, but is not helpful for the maturity of the market. And so what you then get is, pricing changing fundamentally depending on one person's tweet, not sentiment, not market changes, not shifts, not customer demand, but one person can make you a lot of money, which we love, but also could lose you a lot of money, which we don't like. And so I think this is all about trying to ensure we're having the right conversation at the right time, and that it is safe and secure. So if you look at, the market that we serve, it is the vast majority of crypto assets are on Bitstamp. The ones that you absolutely are engaged with, the ones that you can find information on, you can do your own research, you can track it on websites, you can check the pricing with us. It becomes a trusted place for you to trade. And I think it does go back to that word trust. And trust means a whole range of things. How secure is the app? How secure is the website, the platform, the resilience of that platform, the uptime of that, the assets that we're going to list, the liquidity in the market, transparency on fees, etc. You build that up into a story of trust. And that's why we've got a whole range of customers that have been with us for the last 10 years, because they can see that trust coming through the business in every part.
Julian, you've been a part of multiple companies with stellar brands. There is a massive impact when you're seen as the go-to person in the industry. I don't think there's obviously one secret to achieve this, but what are things businesses can implement to slowly get there?
I think for me, what I like is where you have just got an amazing team, and you've got a team that is working together collegiately, sort of, low egos, just getting the job done, everybody on the same page. Because once you get that team, at the executive level, but across the whole organization, you get the organization running as one, then I think you have an amazing opportunity to utilize all those brain cells that we've got within the organization and to execute on some great products. And as soon as you start getting into silos, as soon as you're getting into let's do PowerPoint instead of talking to each other, as soon as you can't feel that you can critique and challenge ideas to improve them, then I think you have a problem. So for me, it's all about the people. And once you get the people, the passion comes from that, and you infuse across the organization.
Julian, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. Firstly, I've learned so much, but it was just lovely getting to pick your brain.
Thank you, Stacey. Appreciate it.
Where's the best place for listeners to reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and you can follow us at Bitstamp as well. So hopefully everyone can find us in one of those formats.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Thank you, Stacey. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Talking Success, Connecting the Global Fintech Community. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at Talent in the Cloud. And if you're interested in exec talent, expanding your team, or you yourself are looking for a new, exciting change in your career, check out our website, talentinthecloud.io.